had the band, and everybody from all around the country came in and danced. And I can't remember now which, I think it was Tommy Dorsey's band that got snowbound in Rockport. We had about 36 inches of snow. And they came in on a big bus. It seemed like it was big back then. I don't know as big as the buses are nowadays or not. Probably not. All the musicians had long hair. My dad explained to me that the reason for that was that they never were in one place long enough to get a haircut.
That makes sense.
As kids, he used to take us down, we'd sit up in the balcony and observe.
And so what did you see? I mean, there was a band and then a dance floor?
Yeah,
Okay, so you were out of the dance floor.
I was up in the balcony above the dance floor.
And it was just you and your dad? You had siblings?
Hmm?
Your siblings get to go?
Yeah. The older ones. I don't remember.
So they'd bring in these brass bands.
They brought in bands like Benny Goodman, Tommy Dorsey, Harry James, and all the big bands.
In Rockford, Missouri, what kind of joint do they have in Rockford to house a party like that?
Memorial building. It's a big old two-story building with sunken dance floor. It's about 6 foot below the ground level. American Legion had their club there.
So that you're talking about like early 40s.
Yeah. 41, 42.
Yeah. Did your mother ever go? Or just your dad would take
I
you?
don't remember. I don't. But he had something to do with management of the building. He was at that time he was the local law enforcement, the volunteer fireman, and other city affairs like the dog catcher and.
In Rockford.
That was the early part of World War I or World War II.
Yeah.
Then he tried to rejoin the Navy, and they wouldn't let him because he's 39 years old, and or 40. He would have been 40, 39 when the war started, I guess. So he ended up helping enlist all of the men that wanted to go to the Navy. And most of the town's young men went to the Navy, and most of them were in the Seabees. And he used to go. I went with him one time when he was going around teaching Red Cross training.
What What were you doing at 10 years old with him at Red Cross trainings?
Well, I would have been 11 by then. But all the little towns around there didn't have anybody with any authority. And so he became the county, and I'm not saying that right, it's not the Red Cross, first aid, he was teaching first aid. How to bandage wounds, and that, you know, at that time, they fully expected, part of that war to come to America.
Mm.
Some of it did, but not much.
So this, who you're talking about, this was Melinda's grandpa.
Yeah.
Did she ever meet him? Was he still around when Amy was born?
No, my granddad died in 1960.
Not your grandpa, your father.
He died in 1960.
Okay, so,
My granddad died in 1939.
oh, gotcha.
He was sheriff of Atchison County.
Okay.
Carter down. But
So-
then my dad didn't feel like he was doing enough for the war effort. We collected scrap, we collected papers.
Mhm.
My dad built a hydraulic press where we would put newspapers and stuff in a big old square deal like to fit on a pallet, and press it down and tie it up and load it on a boxcar. We sold, I think, 2 boxcars full of waste paper magazines. It all went to St. Joe, the Quaker Oats. They recycled all the paper.
Mm.
I've actually got, I haven't seen it and I don't know where it's at, but I actually got a medal for my participation in the war effort. Collected all the iron, every place you saw anything that was aluminum or iron, collected it. And I mean, went out and solicited stuff like that. But I still haven't got around to it. Like he said, he still felt that he wasn't doing his efforts, so he went to Omaha to the Martin Bomber Plant. And he went up there as a guard, security guard. And then he got to where he was involved with their fire department. So he ended up being a fireman up at the B-26 factory.
And at this time, you stayed in Rockford.
I didn't leave Rockport till 48.
So you were with your mother and your daddy left.
Yeah, in the summertime, I would go up for a week, and then my sister would go up for a week, my other sister would go up for a week. But we would actually stay in he had a bedroom type sleeping thing.
You take Greyhound bus, or would mother drive you up there?
No, we had a 38 Ford. The speed limit was like 35 miles an hour.
And who would do the driving? Here you're 12 years old.
He would come home on
Oh,
weekend.
and he'd take you back. So with your daddy dying in 1960, when was Melinda born? 1955? So they had limited Who's your oldest? Which one's oldest?
I've got a lot of pictures of Melinda at my granddad's after the services. She had on a yellow a yellow coat, and, she was in every picture that was taken. I mean, she liked that kind of stuff. And that yellow coat stood out. Or it may have been a red coat. I don't remember. But I got the pictures in there on the computer.
And your mother passed away?
In '74.
Okay, so, you know, Melinda and, all the kids had time with their grandma, right? Grew up knowing their grandma and everything.
My mother's mother lived with her after my granddad died, basically. She talked to her in German. My mother could understand it, but she couldn't speak it. My grandfather and my grandmother were put on a ship and sent to, what's that island in New York?
Ellis Island's where the
Yeah,
Statue of Liberty is.
well, well, it's not where Statue of Liberty is.
Long Island
It's
is a
where,
borough.
it's the island where all the immigration took place.
Hmm.
So, my mother's ancestors, way back before the war, well, back in the late 1800s, came to America. And they got settled in the Midwest around southwestern Iowa and northwest Missouri. And then my mother and dad, my grandfather and grandmother, I think were 4 years old when they put them on the boat and sent them to this country.
You think they sent them without their parents
Mhm.
or with their parents?
No, they just put them on, they were just kids by themselves.
Yeesh.
That would have been back in, that would have been back in 1882 or something like that.
And so there was a time after your daddy passed away that your mother and her mother lived together.
Yeah, my granddad died in '39. And, so she moved in with us. When they come up with Social Security, you had to have 8. What the hell is, how's that measured? I can't remember now, but she had to have 8 quarters, which would be 2 solid years of employment to be eligible for Social Security. So she went to work for old people that were by themselves like me, and actually lived with them as their housekeeper and cook and all that stuff. And I remember 3 different places. Her sister died and left her husband, who was pretty old, and so she actually went up and took care of him until he died. But it was exceptional 3 times she lived at home with my mom.
But you remember going to concerts in Rockford, these big jazz bands.
Oh, yeah.
Being on the
Well,
balcony.
you know, they were advertised for like a month,
Mm-hmm.
just like these are today, I guess.
Yeah.
They so everybody within 3 or 4 counties would show up in a fair like that because that was the only entertainment that there was. We had a movie, we had a theater, but it wasn't that great.
So at 11, 12 years old, were you allowed to dance or tap your toe, or did you have to stay seated in the balcony?
I didn't get that.
When you went to these entertainment events, these big bands, would you dance or?
No, we were strictly observers. My dad was in charge of the building, so he told us where to sit and what to do and what not to do, and that's what we did.
You just had to tap your toe sitting at the chair?
The hard part about it was I suppose our normal sleeping hours, we could probably go to bed around 9 o'clock normally, and those big dances would last till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So I can remember being just absolutely worn out, tired.
Well, as long as you didn't have to stay and mop the place after your guests left. I don't know, I find it hard to sit still when all there's, because it was, you remember some good music, yes, no? Do you remember it as good music?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the surprising thing was that all these farmers and everybody around the country, they were doing the jitterbug and stuff like that. There was some fancy dancing, just like you see or occasionally you see something on TV about back in those days. I don't watch any TV anymore, so
I don't know. Lawrence Welk has some, they have some dancing on Lawrence Welk.
Well, I don't remember him ever coming there. I think Glenn Miller actually was there once. But I do remember Tommy Dorsey and Harry James and Betty Goodman. And Tommy Dorsey had a brother that played the saxophone, I think. And he had his own band that was there. They had their women singers. What do they call those stand-up front type deals? Front.
Lead singer. Backup singer.
The only thing that they used in the way of musical instruments was that the the Memorial Building owned a big piano that they had back there on the stage, and they used that. And everything else they carried in.
Everything else was brass, probably. Saxophone, trombone. They probably had some clarinets in there.
Oh yeah.
Well,
that's Betty Goodman's clarinet.
Yeah.
But, I've been trying to think of, I don't think there's any string instruments back in those days. In those big bands.
Mm-mm. Might have been a harp, but I mean, outside might have been a violin.
Just like when I went to school, the only thing I enjoyed going to school was band. And our band had brass and reed and percussion.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had another side of the thing where they had cellists and violinists and bass viol. And but they were kind of over there on the Philharmonic side. Nobody paid any attention to strings back then. Or at least I didn't.
And what did you play in band?
Trumpet.
Yeah. I was trumpet, cornet.
I had an old beat up cornet. That I started off with. And every year this is from the 7th grade, I guess. Every year there would be music festivals around where they take the different people and show off their skills. And my band teacher always took me because I think she went to school with my mother. My mother went to school and got a degree in music. She was a music teacher. Anyway, she would take me to a deal, some kind of a contest or something like that. I forget what they call it. And she was ashamed of my old cornet, so the gal that was a year younger than me, who lived on a farm, who had all the money, her dad had an airplane. They drove four-door Buick convertible.
Mm.
She had a silver Collin trumpet, and my music teacher would borrow that for me to take the contest. I had to clean it, of course, before and after. Nancy Lurs, I hadn't bought her for a long time. She was so big in the Lutheran, her dad was so big in the Lutheran church that had a pipe organ as well as a piano. He bought her a big fancy xylophone. I think it was probably at least 6 foot long. Or marimba. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
She played it in the church during, sometime during all the services. I think it was called a marimba.
Yeah, but it can make a beautiful sound.
Well, she was pretty good at it. She had 2 of those things in each hand.
Hmm. Yeah, I've got a cornet at home, and it was given to me by my great grandfather, and he played in a band from about 1915 to early 30s.
Is it playable?
Yeah, Amy took it into a shop and had it redone. Now, well, I mean, I used it in high school, and then it sat for a while. And so I think Amy put a little bit of money in it, and then give it to me as a.
Any of your kids play?
No, you know, Abby plays the violin, but no, they don't play any of the brass. This is a silver cornet, and it's got a patent date on it in 1911. But it still goes up and down.
I figured that, I often wonder if I could still blow a horn since I've got false teeth. I doubt that I could.
You might have some embouchure left, Grandpa.
I thought about going to a pawn shop and see if I couldn't pick me up one just to see.
Why don't I just bring one? Why don't I bring my cornet over? Just have you blow on it. You know? Yeah.
I only had about 3 lessons from a music teacher,
And then you took off.
and back in those days, they had was starting from the top. They had solo, and then first solo chair, first chair,
Right.
second chair, third chair. That would have been freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, I guess. Yeah, back in those days, I couldn't wait for summer to be over so I could get back to band practice. We had a marching band. These people that I still keep in touch with that are still alive, E.R. Darrell played the trombone. David Stickrod played the snare drum and cymbals. Nancy Peacock played the bass clarinet. Don't think the rest of them played anything. My sister Carol and my sister Mary both played instruments, and I guess my younger sister played. She ended up with my old cornet, but I had no idea whatever happened to it. And my folks, I guess, were about as ashamed of it as I was. So one year they spent $75 to have it reconditioned. Back in those days, that was a hell of a lot of money.
Oh yeah. Oh heck yeah. Well, I think it was to have I think it was over $100 to have them. I don't know.
Imagine.
They oiled it, took out the you can.
Well, I had dents. I had dents in it. And they straightened it all out and recoated it.
Yeah, no, this one's pretty clean. I know right. It's right underneath the bed. I know right where it is. I'll bring it over here, Grandpa, and let you puff on it a little.
Well, if it's silver, it's probably a con.
I don't know. It's a name that I want to say it's something to do with Elgin, but I just make that up. I don't know. I think I'd know if it was a con, but
What
what
got me in later years was I didn't actually realize. For example, there's one gal that I went to school with that lives in Florida now, and I talk to her once in a while. She played the French horn. And my sister played the alto. It had 3 keys. The French horn had 4. And Nancy Peacock played the bass clarinet. Well, the bass clarinet and the French horn along with several other instruments, belonged to the school. In other words, I'm thinking here we had to furnish our own, and some people didn't, they got them for nothing.
Right.
I guess I knew that at the time, but I thought a lot about that. Delmer Windhorse played the, what's the big horn that goes up around your,
Tuba.
oh, tuba is the one that's straight up and down.
Yeah.
The one that, the cone is forward, that they wear on their shoulder. Well, I'll be
I
damned.
thought the tuba was the only thing that you wear.
Well, tuba was a straight up and down
Yeah, but
instrument that you had in front of you.
yeah.
This big horn I'm talking about is that big around, and it goes around your shoulder, and the bell on it's about that big around.
Sounds like a,
You know, you see them in all marching bands.
sounds like a tuba to me. Because the tuba's not up here. I mean, it's, you know, it does have the.
Well, my understanding of a tuba is that the sound comes out the top.
I just can't wait to get my cornet over here. Have you blow in it.
I've
You think you could do a scale? Dun 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 dun. No. Dun 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 dun. Because you're open. Remember, you're open, and then your 2, 1 and 2 is down, and then the first one's down, and then you're open, and
I would
then
think it's like riding a bicycle. I imagine if once you did it, you probably would never forget it.
yeah, yeah. Even though, when's the last time you put your lips on a brass cornet or trumpet?
I played, Nancy played when she was going to musical school down in Winfield in 1969, 68, 69. We got into the American Legion, and when they'd have their services out the cemetery, she'd get me a trumpet, and I would be off in the out of sight and play the echo. She played you know, like taps and different things like that.
Taps you can play all open.
And I, with a bugle probably, yeah. But I was off in the distance making it sound like it was an echo. And that was in 69.
Well, yeah, then you're not gonna
So
hear it.
that's the last time I touched one.
Yeah, yeah. So I thought it might have been 44 or something. 6. Yeah, you probably right. You remember it
I
right.
didn't graduate to 48.
You probably pick it right up then. I want to send.
You know, I didn't understand very much about music back in those days. But when my mother would play the piano, we'd get together about once a week. And she'd play the piano and everybody'd sing and I'd play the cornet. Well, the piano is the key of C. Cornet is B flat. So if I'm looking over her shoulder and playing the same music, I've got to change, I've got to learn all over again to be able to transpose to where it sounds right. And I got pretty good at that. When I went in the Navy, they really, with my school record, they tried to get me to get in the Navy band. And I tried to imagine what it would have been like had I done that. Life would have been so much different.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna text Amy right now and tell her and get out the old coronet.